Ladies and gentlemen, I have traveled to New York on the instructions of my Prime Minister Imran Khan, who asked me to go and share the sentiment of the people of Pakistan, the outrage on the streets of Pakistan, with the members of the General Assembly. Before leaving, I was armed with a unanimous resolution of Pakistan's Parliament, which I have shared with other foreign ministers who I met last night. In my statement,
but so far there will be no resolution coming out.
True, there wasn't enough time for proper consultations for a consensus resolution. And three, we do not want any attempt through some amendment to dilute what was already resolved in 2018.
Sir, after having done all this, what more the Islamic countries, in particular in Pakistan, can do to protect the Palestinians?
The next move that we have already initiated is activation of the Human Rights Council. Pakistan, being a member of the Human Rights Council, has consulted with other OIC members, and we have mobilized and convinced the Human Rights Council to convene on the 27th of May. Inshallah, we will be taking the human angle, to the Human Rights Council, and we will draw their attention to the human rights violations that are continuing in Gaza, West Bank, and all over the occupied territories, and will try not just forge a consensus amongst ourselves, try and convince democratic forces, civil society within Europe to speak up. We cannot have double standards. If human rights are being violated in Gaza, and can't you see that? It's being reported. And today the world has changed. You can control print and perhaps even electronic media. You can influence them. But today it is impossible to influence the citizen journalist, the individual right there in Gaza, sharing clips that has shaken the conscience of the world. Today, what you see on the streets, what you see in Michigan, what you see in Chicago, what you see in Madrid, what you see in Berlin, what you see in Paris, what you see in London, it's not the motivation of the governments. It's the people. It's the people that's moving the governments to revisit, reconsider their positions and speak up.
Mr. Minister, you were talking about international force to provide protection to the Palestinian people. The Turkish foreign minister also talked about a similar idea. Is this a coordinated position between Pakistan and Turkey and maybe others? And are you discussing this idea with the US?
We are working collectively from the OIC platform. And every proposal that we intend to make must be and should be through the OIC platform.
Can I ask you, sir, is there any parallel you see between the tragedy of the Palestinian and Palestine and that of Kashmir people under occupation?
When I look at the tragedy in Gaza and occupied territories, it draws my attention to the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. What are people demanding over there? Self-determination. What are people afraid of over there is demographic restructuring, exactly like this. What are people crying for in Kashmir is protection of basic fundamental rights. What are people asking for from the international community is, please, there should be no impunity to indiscriminate use of force. What are people saying? What are people crying out over there? That we are suffering a double lockdown. A COVID lockdown, and we are under a military siege of the most militarized zone in the world. So obviously there are similarities.
So how do you evaluate the United States, which is reluctant to the agreement in the United Security Council?
Well, I think the Biden administration is actively engaged. I had a word with Secretary Blinken. I spoke to him from Pakistan. We had a telephonic conversation, and he informed me that their representative was in the region trying to convince people that an immediate ceasefire is required. And he assured me of intensive diplomatic activity. You see that, and I hear more voices within the United States speak up. I'm told that there is a hot debate within the Democratic Party on what the reaction of the administration should be. I'm told more and more people within the US Congress are speaking up. And I'm encouraged to see caring Americans who've always stood up for human rights and have stood up for universal values. They are being counted through their peaceful demonstrations in Chicago and Michigan and other places. So yes, I think this pressure that is building, people's pressure, will I think hopefully convince the administration of the US government to reconsider their approach and forge a consensus within the Security Council so that there is an immediate ceasefire. Our immediate objective today, my purpose of traveling to New York today, is to achieve an immediate ceasefire, and the rest will follow. Immediate cessation of hostilities. 2, provision urgently of humanitarian assistance. 3, condemnation of Israeli violations of international law. 4, accountability for such violations. 5, international protection of Palestinians, a protection force. I've suggested that. And the last point, 6th, initiation of a peace process for a two-state solution. I'd like to add that people are generally, and people in Pakistan in particular, disappointed at the indecision, the lack of consensus in the Security Council. We feel silence is no longer an option, because enough is enough. OIC, the Arab Group, the Northern Ireland Movement have collectively made, and with the support of the President of the General Assembly, made this session possible. This session has taken place after a long pause of a physical meeting. There were virtual meetings going on, and we did not have, we didn't have a physical presence, of the Anga. And this is a session where people are physically there. We, all foreign ministers of OIC who are here, we will be meeting the President of the General Assembly this afternoon to consider joint action. Thank you.